Today I'd like to talk to you about personal learning networks, sometimes called professional learning networks. First of all, I just want to say that mine has been extremely helpful while I've been out of touch or not had colleagues with whom I was interested in some of the same things or exploring some of the same topics. And I would like to suggest that you build your personal learning network and learn from these people who you may not be able to see face to face. Now, first of all, why, I guess, is a pretty big question. This is basically we're talking about a social network for learning. It really could be kind of a formal or informal network. It could be part of a group that you're in, part of a course, a group of teachers who you work with, or something of the like. You could have it as regular meetings, but generally these tend to be a little bit informal and tend to be guided by your interests or maybe other people's interests who are participating in this group. The idea basically is that you're benefiting from each other's knowledge and expertise, and it's interesting because just to give you a little background of why I really started getting into these personal learning networks, when I was in Costa Rica teaching back about 10 years ago, there really wasn't a whole lot going on in educational technology, at least not things that were really satisfying my interests and what I wanted to learn. And I actually started listening to some podcasts, and those actually brought me to Twitter. And through those two different mediums, I was able to also get involved in some communities, and I started reading some blogs and things like that. And what really happened was I was able to get that kind of learning and group sense that I was lacking at the time in Costa Rica. And now there's a whole lot of great stuff going on there. But at the time, I was a little bit hungry for some things that were not happening, and I was really trying to move in a direction that I couldn't find any others who were really trying to go that way. So, actually, some of the things that happened. One of the things that was great was when I moved to Korea to teach. Actually, 4 out of the 5 people on my team I had already known and interacted with in Twitter. And I knew that we were all on the same page with where we saw educational technology and our roles at the school. And it was almost like we just skipped the first month of school and went on and just started working. So all those introductions and getting to know you stuff really didn't need to take place because we had known each other for quite some time through Twitter. Now, so what should you be doing with your personal learning network? I think tailoring it to your learning needs is what's really important. So when you're putting up a profile, when you write your bio, say what it is that you're interested in. Don't just put educator in Kuala Lumpur or whatever. If you give a little bit about what you're interested in and maybe 1 or 2 things that are personal, I think that really helps you to find the people who you are going to be able to learn from. Now, this generally takes place with direct or indirect collaboration. You might just be putting something out there to the Twitterverse or posting something in a group, or you might be reading something that someone else did. You may also connect with that person or group where you're actually doing something specifically together, and maybe it's some type of global learning or mystery Skype or things along those lines. But that connection is what really makes it important and what makes it strong and what makes it a real valuable tool. Now, one of the other things that I do in my personal learning network is I do my best to share resources that I find that are important to me or interesting to me. And what I would recommend is that when you find something that you like or that you're able to use, that you share it with your network, and you start building that network with those interests. When you share something, other people who have that similar interest will be able to learn from you as well as you learning from them. And using hashtags, which I'll talk about in a little bit, will really help with this. remember that your network is really only as good as you make it. And if you want to sit on Twitter and lurk and not really follow anybody or not really interact with anybody, it's just like going to any group meeting. If you sit there quiet in the corner of the room, you're going to get a lot less out of it than if you were to participate in it. So my big recommendation when you get into these learning networks is to really dedicate some time to it. That doesn't mean you have to sit there for hours and hours every single day. When I started using Twitter, I was doing it for 10 minutes on my prep time 3 times a week. And little by little, I had built a following and people who I started interacting with. And it's something that, it takes time in order to make those connections. My other recommendation would be help some other people. If somebody asks a question and you know the answer, respond, right? Tell them or point them in the direction of the resource or someone who can help them. That really helps greatly to build connections with those people. Finding people with similar interests is huge, like I said earlier. And also, once again, I just want to emphasize sharing resources that you think are valuable is going to be what makes you valuable in that learning network. So today I will focus specifically on the 4 areas that I had mentioned. The first is blogs, and then podcasts, and communities, and Twitter. So I will focus on each of those and building those into your personal learning network. This doesn't mean that you necessarily need to do them all or all of them equally. You're going to find some value in the different resources that you have, and what you want to do is go with what makes you feel most comfortable and where you're getting the biggest bang for your buck with your personal learning network. Blogs are the first Web 2.0 tool, and for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, when I say Web 2.0, what I mean is, if you think of Web 1.0, like the first websites that were there on the internet, those were all for consumption. Unless you knew HTML, there was no way for you to create a web page or post any content online. But once blogs came out, blogs gave everybody the opportunity to be able to post whatever they wanted online in the form of a blog. So when we say Web 2.0, we mean anything where people can post their own content without knowing HTML or any type of coding. Now, I've talked about in this course before about blogging and about passion. I've showed examples such as the Yum List. I've showed my blog. But blogs are just one way to stay connected with what's current in education, and they allow you to keep up to date, to be reading different perspectives, different opinions, and to stay up on whatever is the latest that is going on. The blog I've been reading a lot lately is called The Innovator's Mindset, and that's by George Couros, and I would recommend you definitely check that one out. The next topic is podcasts. And I think most of us have become familiar with podcasts over the years, especially with big ones like Serial that have come out. But there are a lot of educational podcasts, and I would recommend taking a look at some of the different ones that are out there. I like 21st Century Radio is a really good one. There's all kinds. I especially love this when I'm traveling, and I can just plug into a podcast and get a little bit of learning and entertainment done at the same time while I'm stuck on a plane or in an airport or something like that. But podcasts will help to expand your horizons, help you to bring in some new ideas, to get some different things to think about, and will send you off in other directions with your learning. About 10 years ago or so, a bunch of these online communities began popping up, and the mode was Ning. So Ning was this website that allowed you to make like these social networks, and a lot of different ones popped up. Probably the biggest one being Classroom 2.0. And this was just an opportunity for people to get together who were into the same types of topics. And within that Classroom 2.0, you could join different groups. If you were into video production, that would be, you could do that one. If you liked inquiry, you could do that. And join these different little communities within the community in order to connect with people who had similar interests. I think most of this has really kind of been taken over in the past few years by Facebook groups. I'm in a whole bunch of different Facebook groups that have to do with different educational topics, and you can pretty much find them on any type of topic that you can think of. They could be geographically based or not, but that's a really easy way for you to connect with a real person and have it be something that really, when speaking about Facebook, it really ends up being a part of your day for most of us checking Facebook. Twitter is by far my favorite, and I think the easiest way to explain it is really to just show you how I use it on a regular basis. So first of all, let me just give you the basic explanation. I use TweetDeck in order to follow Twitter. I really don't hardly ever do any Twitter use or any tweeting or whatever you want to call it on the web. What I like to do is I like to do it through TweetDeck. And so if you look at this column here on TweetDeck here on the right, this is my feed, and this is everyone who I follow. And this is happening in real time, as you can see, as it's changing. And as people who I follow tweet, you will see those tweets in here. Now, that's everybody who I follow, and it's always going to come through. So now the next column over that I have is I am following a hashtag, and this hashtag is EduCoach. Now, I'll talk about hashtags in a little bit, but you can follow any subject that you want, any hashtag that you want, and it could be anything from sweatpants to knitting to a whole bunch of different educational ones. And this is also happening in real time, but you'll notice in a hashtag like EduCoach, it doesn't quite happen as quickly as it does in my home feed. So this last tweet in EduCoach was 3 hours ago. Now, one of the things that I like about following a hashtag is a lot of times as I follow a hashtag and I see some of the different people who are posting, if I like what they post, then what I'll do is I'll check out their profile, and I may follow them, and then all their tweets will show up here in my home feed. Now, another hashtag that I follow is ISEdCoach, and this one is for international schools, and I actually know a lot of the people in this one, and there's most of these people actually I follow already, but these are just really things that are tagged for ed coaches who are in international schools. Once again, it's not going to scroll through as much as my home feed, but it will come through as people post on that topic. Now, the next column here that I have are my mentions. ISKL Proud. And a mention is when someone else uses your Twitter name that I teach at in and a tweet. People post on a variety of different things. That may happen frequently. That may happen infrequently. May never happen at all. And so that's dominated the tweets in the last few days. But it's there, and it'll keep scrolling during the school year. It's dominated with some cool projects, some student learning, and things like that. But like I said, last few days, it's really been more about the packing. The next one that I have, the next column I have here, is my messages. And messages are private messages. These are the only tweets that are not public and on the internet. So, for example, I can tweet with specific people. I can even have group tweets. This is a group tweet from a bunch of people who I was at a conference with. And you can see that there are lots of different people in there posting on different topics. Most of the time, these are generally between two people. Now, here's the hashtag for this course, And as you can see, I've put in a few and some students have put in a few. If you scroll back, you will see hashtags that go back to other sections of this course. There's some from December and even earlier if we continue to scroll back. But I want you to keep using this as you find different topics that you think will be interesting to the other members of the course. So I followed a couple other things that maybe aren't quite as, you might not think of them as quite as academic. Scrapyard Dogs and USA Softball. These are both softball ones. I coach varsity softball at our school, and so I'm not always learning about tech. Sometimes I'm learning about softball and coaching and things like that. And generally what I do is I follow different topics at the time that they're appropriate. So for example, 21CLHK is from a conference. Hashtags really make conferences a lot better. This hashtag here, Learn Forward 17, I didn't even go to this conference, but I was following the hashtag because there was a lot of good stuff coming out on it. And generally what I do is I don't get rid of these columns when they're done. I just leave them there. And then I just, as I'm using a column, I push it over to the left. So the closer it gets to my messages and to my mentions, the more recently I've used it. And you can see as I scroll through, I have a bunch of different columns that I've used at different times. And I may move these around as I'm doing different things. By the way, CP Chat is a good one. That stands for Connected Principles. And there's all kinds of other ones, and I won't bore you with all the rest. But if you find a hashtag that you like, all you have to do is click on it and add a column in TweetDeck. It's really quite simple. Hashtags are a really great way to be able to find people and topics that you're interested in. And if I were to give you a quick little starter kit, I'd say these four are really good ones to start out with. The first two are really just on education, educational technology. CP Chat is Connected Principles Chat, so you get a lot of leadership perspective. And then EduCoach, I've already mentioned earlier in the video. One of the things that's a really great idea is to use some school hashtags. So if you're promoting your school or talking about the different things that your school does, you can create a hashtag for it and try and get it to gather some momentum. These are three that are pretty well known and a lot of people are using at these different schools. I hope you've enjoyed learning about personal learning networks. It's definitely one of the most powerful tools for learning that is available to you as an educator. And remember, like I said earlier, the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it.